right, this episode we're talking about finally talking about the Dune movie, or should we say the first installment?
Dune Part 1.
Dune Part 1. And it's going to be two parts, correct?
The
second, I know they renewed it. They finally, they did the first one and it came out and they hadn't, I guess they were still sort of sitting on the fence. But
they already knew. They knew they were making the second one.
But why didn't they film, big chunks of it and stuff? You know what I mean?
Because there was a few reasons. One, the director wanted to have some space in between it so that he could age the characters a bit. Because remember, there's a 4-year gap in there when Paul becomes a Fremen, and then I think it's 2 to 4 year gap. Right. Also, to get the amount of money he wanted to do it, he had to, you could do it all, but we can only give you this much money. We'll do the first one. If it's successful, we'll give you the same amount of money, if not more, for the second.
Yeah.
So, and also the thing is, you have to remember, like Denis Villeneuve or whatever his name is. He's great. I've loved almost all of his movies, but he's one of those directors that a studio hires for clout. Like, you're not gonna win. You're not gonna do have the highest grossing movie at the box office with them, but you're gonna get the Academy Award nomination.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He's like Paul Anderson or Wes Anderson. There's a few other directors out there like him. Francis Ford Coppola.
There's a stylistic.
You're going to get a lot of clout with them, a lot of artistic clout. You're not going to get the MCU blockbuster movie out of them.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Sarah, you've never read the book, right?
So I didn't read the books, but I did the audio version a couple years ago.
Reading a book.
And I listened. Yeah.
Okay, that counts.
Well, it's listening to it.
That counts.
Listening to somebody else act it out without my imagination. Yes, but no. I really liked it. I watched the original. What was it, 1986 or 84 version?
84, yeah.
That when that was going on, my dad and my brother would watch that, and so there were parts of the newer version that I liked the way that they presented it a little bit better, and I liked how for the most part it was pretty on par from what I remember from the books, and I'm re-listening to the audio versions now too. But I mean, this first movie is like the first 350 something pages.
Yeah,
it's about the first half.
Is it? I thought it was a little bit less than the first half, but that I haven't really. Like, I was thinking that just was what it seemed to me.
I researched it and I found somebody that went and said it was like 352 pages of 500 and something on. I'm gonna look for it.
It actually is probably around the middle. Okay.
Yeah. But I enjoyed it. I liked the actors that, for the most part, I liked the actors that played it. Some of the actors that I thought were going to be a little questionable in their character actually fit in well, because, to be honest, Jason Momoa, I wasn't sure how he was going to go, because he's pretty much himself. Whatever movie, he's just that guy. Yeah. But he really fit Duncan Idaho as kind of that. Like, it was okay. I got it. I get why he was there. And but a lot of the actors were incredible. Javier Bardem was incredible as Stilgar. So I'm excited to see Stilgar as well. Yeah. I'm excited to see what he does in the future. I really thought Zendaya did well. I expected her to do well, but I didn't expect her, we didn't see a lot of her, but I believed it. That was in there. Timothy Chalamet, I was pleasantly surprised because I wasn't sure about that one.
I've seen so many things of people making fun of him. I purposely never watched anything else he was in. Hopefully,
I don't know anything else.
I've seen like a couple, they talked about other movies he was in. I still haven't seen them. I agree. I thought he was great, and I love Rebecca Ferguson.
Yeah, she was
fantastic. She was in a movie called Life with Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds, a space alien movie. And she was really good in that. And she was the bad guy. She was the girl with the cowboy hat in Doctor Sleep. So she's I think she's Scandinavian or something like that. She's not.
She was fantastic. I thought she was great. I thought the kid that got to play Paul was great. Do what?
Go ahead. Like him? No. I liked him fine. I have one person I don't really care for.
So I wasn't big on what's his name, Brogan as Gurney.
Yeah,
I wasn't big on that, and I wasn't big. I will say when I saw Jason, whatever his name is, I was like, ah, shit. Yeah. It was a little better than I thought it was going to be. Duncan Idaho is one of my favorite characters in it, and it was a little too bro for me. But it was a little. We'll see him. Coming back. I know that's what I mean, and so, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. When I saw that, it really kind of.
The thing is, with Jason Momoa, is you guys saying, he just plays the same part. But if you remember him as Khal Drogo in Game of Thrones, he was very different.
He was great in that. That's the best he was.
He was good in that. But he's like, it's Aquaman, any of that right now. It's
all that. His stuff when he was in Stargate was very much the same.
Yeah, that's right. He was Stargate. But that's Stargate. I get that Stargate. I don't want that in my Dune. Is pretty much what it is.
But I thought, like, when you read the book, in the first book, Duncan Idaho does not have that big of a part. I mean, he's got a bigger part than he did in the original movie, but he's not that big. Gurney's got a much bigger part.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. It's now, more of later in the it's later in the books after the Duncan comes.
When the Gola shows up, the Duncan Idaho Gola in Dune Messiah, then that's a lot more development of the character. So we'll see if that happens, what happens there. Yeah. But I think Josh Brolin, because from the way Gurney Halleck talks in the audiobook and the way Patrick Stewart played him in the first movie, I feel like Gurney Halleck should be like a slightly built, like strong, but not a big guy, and should be bald and kind of sardonic. And that's how he is. That's how his personality is. Not like, because we were joking about the scene where he's like, you don't know the Harkonnens, they're brutal. The way he says that line, like, that's just the worst line in the whole movie. It's just so overacted. It's just, But
I mean, his character in what it is he's a freaking warrior. Like, he is a seasoned warrior that has been
he's like a warrior poet. I mean, he sings, he's a bard, all this kind of stuff. And he's really sarcastic and sardonic in the book, and
well, and part of it, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, there's visually, it was much more. See, I read the book before I saw any of the movies or saw the movie. So the book. So my first thoughts, my inner in my head, they've all had to, I've had to contend with that. But this was much closer in a look standpoint. But the problem is when the book, there's characters that come on that these backstories, and you have an attachment to them and an investment in them that they're really doesn't warrant what they are in these movies.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you're going to have that. It's always when people say, well, the book's better. Well, the book was your version of it. Of course it's better. You've tailored it to your own, thing.
And then I saw the 84 movie, and then I read the book, and I was in like high school, I think, when the movie, like, we went and saw it. My dad took us to see it like the day we were out of school for Christmas holiday. We went that afternoon that we got out of school. Like, we went like to the 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock show. So I remember seeing that. And that's one of the things that's killing me when I'm reading, like, the people on Facebook, the Dune groups, don't get in any of them. They're all terrible. All those people, all you people out there in the Dune groups, you're terrible. they keep going, well, why isn't the Emperor in it yet? And I'm like, well, if you read the book, the Emperor doesn't show up until the end of the book. He's at the very beginning of the 84 movie, and that's actually a rewriting of a scene that's in the beginning of Dune Messiah.
Right.
That's not, and they're like, well, this and this. And I'm like, you guys don't come off like you know about the book when you don't. You're talking about the 84 movie, I don't know.
Yeah, there's people talking about they go the Dune remake. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah.
No, there's people on the internet, they're talking about the Dune movie remake. That's what they're calling this. Yeah. And I'm just like, no, like they're like, oh, the first Dune movie was so inspirational. Like, where did they come up with those ideas? And I'm like, well, there were a series of books. Many years prior.
Well, I mean, that's the thing that's crazy about when you listen to the book, you realize it was written in 1965. Well, it was published in 1965. It was probably written many years before that. I mean, it's really an interesting book. And one of the things I want to say about this movie is, first off, I thought Oscar Isaac, who I make fun of quite a bit because he's in absolutely everything.
Yeah, and he plays the same character in everything.
But he is so good in this movie. I thought
really
he was
good
great.
Yeah.
He was better than I thought he was going to be, because he's, he was middle of the road in those lame Star Wars.
Oh, don't even, Poe Dameron, whatever. Let's not even worry about that.
I've seen him in other stuff, and it's low key. He does play a very similar. Yeah. He's a great actor. He's a very good actor, but it's a very similar. You know what I mean? It's all the things I've seen him. His reads are all extremely. It's all very similar, but I thought he did a good job in this. No, my thing was, I just wonder about people who've never read the book.
Yeah, if you've never read the book, I don't see how you would figure out. Like,
I know there's some stuff in there. Yeah,
there was things that I picked up on that were subtle that I didn't pick up that I thought were great. Like, they never said the word mentat. Right. They never said it, so they never referenced them. But the way their eyes would roll back when they were doing their calculation, because remember, this is 20,000 years from now. It's not 10,000 years. That 10,191 is BG, before Guild, or after Guild, AG. Right. So, and the Guild from now until when the Guild starts is 10,000 years. So we're 20,000 years in the future. So there's no computers. So man has gotten to the point where he is actually so advanced and so he does computer calculations in their mind like this. But what's even I thought was more interesting was Dr. Huey. So you've got a doctor who, in 20,000 years of evolution and in training and everything else, all he has to do, he doesn't require any medical equipment. He's so attuned that he touches you to get your vitals. He touches you and is able to tell from touching you what's going on in your body. And I mean, that's just like, to me, that's just like, okay, this is the evolution of man, 20,000 years into the future. Well, I thought those were great.
And the thinking, and there's the backstory is the Butlerian Revolution or whatever. Yeah, where it's basically, they call them the thinking machines.
The AI.
Basically the AI, and there's a battle. I mean, he was that far ahead of his time. That's pretty early. I mean, I think there's some other people who were already dealing with AI, but not a lot.
Clark.
So he'd already had all those in his notes, and it's part of the backstory. And then in the books that his son and Kevin Anderson have done, they've done one for that. But it was basically that they basically outlaw computers from that standpoint with AI in them, and that's why you don't have that.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's why like everything's clockwork, and they do everything manually. Like if you see them fly the ships, there's no computer control of the ornithopters. They're doing it themselves. You know?
Well, it to me, I've always liked what's I think now referred to as soft science fiction, in that Star Trek, Star Wars, I mean, most of your main writers in the 70s and through the, you know, through the 80s were this, where unlike what is it, The Martian? What was the one? You know, where the science actually, where you're talking about
Andy Weir's The Martian.
Yeah, what The Martian, that's it. Where you're talking about legitimate scientific ideas.
Yeah.
They don't really have them in this. It's more of, but what I like about his stuff, his kind of started from things that were actual scientific ideas, but he jumps off of them and goes off. Philip K. Dick is one where it's that it's the start of one. It's the start of a scientific idea, but it's more of then that becomes part of it, part of the story, and then it's not about the science is never legit, you know, or rarely is legit.
Right.
Yeah, that's the bad thing about Star Trek. Whenever they would have episodes, there were a few writers that wanted to do this gobbledygook, and it would become a plot. They would resolve a plot with some type of, and it was just like, oh, I mean, it's one. And those writers were a couple of the writers that went on to go with Voyager. So there's a bunch of, you know, there's just that kind of nonsense. But what I like about his stuff is it's all world building, all that stuff like that. You know, it doesn't have, it's not it's not advanced technology, but it's an advanced civilization. So it has this odd mixture of, you know, sort of analog and then sort of in a
very analog. Everything's very analog. Everything's very Victorian clockwork, but on, you know, and the one cool thing that they did in this, which in the movie, in the 84 movie, you know, like you saw the ship at Caladan and then it blinked out and the ship came back.
Right.
But you see these guild ships over the planets and what's like in their hollow. So when you see through them, and I didn't notice this until the second watch of this movie, what you see through the other end of the ship is not there. It's another universe. Like they're like little wormholes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So that's the thing that allows the guild navigators basically to make wormholes or whatever. So
I'll have to look at that.
Fold space.
One thing.
Remember, folding space is what happened in Event Horizon, by the way.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's a dicey proposition at best.
Yeah. Spooky movie.
One thing I was looking at, since I went back and I looked at timelines. I looked at timelines for big science fiction movies and books that were happening along these time periods, and specifically what you brought up, Scotty, with Star Wars. So if you look at Dune in itself, and a lot of the ideas and things that happened since that book, the first book was written in 1965. And if we look at Star Wars, and to me, watching that movie, just seeing some of the ideas, even if I didn't have any idea of anything like that, I would think, oh, well, Dune's ripping off a lot of ideas from Star Wars, but it's really the other way around, because 1965, the Dune books were written, and I haven't read all 9, like there's 9 of them, right?
Yeah, but you don't need to read past like the first 3 or 4. After that, it just gets ridiculous.
Or like the Star Wars, George Lucas starts Star Wars in 1977. So even if like he was writing it a few years beforehand, you can look and see how much of that inspiration he got from obviously from Dune. But kids nowadays, they're not going to know that. They're going to say, oh, well, you know, like it's so interesting to me. But to have these ideas in 1965.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it took him a while to publish it. He probably wrote it even further before, you know, in the early 60s. Also, there's a documentary called Jodowaski's Dune, which is about this guy, this avant-garde filmmaker who was trying to make Dune. And he had this giant book printed. I mean, it was like this, and it was Mobius, the French artist, comic artist, did all of the costumes and all the drawings, and they did all this stuff. And he storyboarded the whole movie. And what they wanted is they wanted to take this book to the studios to say, here's the completed movie. We're not going to do anything super weird. You know what we're going to do. Give us money to make this movie. So they printed all of these books and sent them to all the major studios in the United States, and then came over. And of course, none of the studios would deal with them because they were a bunch of wackos. But George Lucas, Spielberg, all of those guys got to see that book, got to handle that book. There's a picture in that book that looks exactly like Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker with lightsabers in Bespin City. That is a total visual ripoff from the Dune book. So they had that on top of, Lucas read all the sci-fi he could get his hands on, and anybody who was reading sci-fi back then read Dune. I mean, it was like, a must read. So, the whole Force voice, the whole Force mind trick.
These aren't the droids you're looking
Do the
for.
boys.
Yeah. These aren't the droids you're looking for. Yeah, it's total. Well, and then in the prequels, all the stuff about the council and the Senate and all that.
All that political stuff.
Yeah, he was trying, which in Dune, it's fantastic. It's so amazingly boring.
Bringing that.
It's like real politics. It's that boring.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
But I will say one thing about the 1994 Dune movie. He did use some lines from the book word for word, which was kind of interesting. But in this movie, they
94,
improved
84
upon it.
There's a Sci-Fi Channel movie that came out.
Those came out in the 90s.
I did not see those.
I tried to watch one the other day because I was like, I wanted to see it. And the costumes and the acting is so horrible in it. I couldn't watch it.
I'm gonna have to watch it.
It's green.
That sounds like a bottle of wine watch. That's what it is. You get halfway through a bottle of wine.
The second one, the Children of Dune one is better.
Okay. I'm gonna watch it.
It's actually Dune Messiah
and Children of Dune combined.
Together.
James McAvoy is Leto the second, becomes a second.
All right, another thing, and I don't know. I wouldn't say I didn't like it. Maybe that I don't know how I would phrase this, but a lot of people really like the music. To me, it wasn't music. It was sound design. Yeah, there's people that really like it. I think it's kind of a cop out because there's no actual. I mean, I get they didn't want to make a space opera, but man, you got to have at least some themes or that to me that was the thing where I was like, I mean, there was, and some of that stuff is very cool, but it wasn't.
I didn't notice it, to be honest.
Well,
it wasn't really music. It was more of a soundscape.
That's what I mean.
Soundscape. It's like whale sounds while you're sleeping. It's not. You're not supposed to notice it.
I'm looking to see if it's the same.
It's not like they broke out with "Come on, Eileen" Zimmer. In the middle of the thing.
It's Hans Zimmer.
And Hans Zimmer. I think he did.
He's done
Blade Runner 2049.
He does all the blockbusters.
And he did Blade Runner 2049 too, and it's the same kind of thing. Like Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner was done by Vangelis, and it had, it was, synth and all of that, but it was like that. Those songs, that music is so attached to the movie. It's like what I mean. Decker's theme and all of that.
Well, so you add an extra element if you look at Star Wars. You look at all the John Williams stuff. Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Raiders. E.T. All those things. What is it with Saudi Arabia? What's his? I can't remember. There's all these famous movies that, for the most part, the scores are another form of art that stuck with it. And I thought it was a cop out not to do that in this. That was one of the things that I didn't.
I don't disagree.
I don't know.
Everybody talks Zimmer up like it's the greatest thing ever, and
I think having recognizable music like Star Wars, dun, 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 like that. That's okay. I get that, but sometimes it's very detaching from the story, and if the story is the mainline thing, you don't want somebody going da, 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 I don't always like that.
I don't think it's that.
Even in the Avengers, you have you have a little bit of the things here and there, but at least you have scores. You have well, not that it's not even a score. I shouldn't say that. You have melodic you have reoccurring melodic concepts.
Well, and I mean, even if you look at all those Marvel movies, they throw in good sounds. Like if you look at Guardians of the Galaxy, one of the big reasons I like that movie is because of the songs that I know. But like if you look at an epic like this, like they're not going to be able to throw in, you know, jovial music. So I like the fact that I really didn't even really notice the music, because a lot of times, like something, you know, having no sound is a sound choice. You know, that kind of thing. And I feel like it did a lot of that.
I get that. And I mean, and I agree. And I see what you're saying. But like, you know, when I went and saw Blade Runner 2049, like I'm a huge Blade Runner fan. I mean, like Dune and Blade Runner are like top movies to me.
Did you like the 2049 one?
I did like 2049. I
did.
The music, the soundscape got on my nerves because it was super bombastic in parts of it and everything. The only thing that they did that I really liked is there's a theme by Vangelis in Blade Runner called Tears in the Rain, and it's the music that was right there when Roy Batty dies. And at the end of the movie, when Kay's laying down on the steps because, you know, he's dying because he got shot, the music has a touch of that. Like you can hear this, like they borrowed that melody to, you know, connect the two movies. And I was like, okay, I'm totally bought into that. I mean, like, that's fantastic. You know what I mean? I love that. That was great to me. So if they had just, you know, hey, you never know, we might get a little bit of the Toto theme here into the second movie.
Yeah.
But I think Brian Eno had a lot to do with the theme of the original Dune movie. Right. But Toto performed the majority of it. But like the prophecy theme, and there's one other thing that's the well-known melodies were done by Brian Eno.
Yeah, so when I saw them a couple of years, like 2 years ago, they played one of the things from Dune.
That's awesome.
They'd never done it live, and they were like, it's one of the things we'd never done. So
wow.
Yeah, to me, we'll see. I mean, I know that's hip and modern to do right now is to not have, but I think it's a cop out. I think
but you know, when Star Wars came out, it was passé and not cool to have an orchestral score.
Right.
And by him having that, you know, like, because like go watch Planet of the Apes or go watch sci-fi movies before Star Wars, and they all had these weird like synthesizer soundtracks. Or
well, that was the cool, you know, futuristic thing.
Or very avant-garde orchestral music, like Planet of the Apes, the original Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, that's a classic. That's a classic film score. I mean, it was way ahead of its time. I mean, that's the thing. And I just think it's a cop out. I get it. It's a lot of work, and it's something that it's another element that might not be liked or that people can. But I just think when it is done well, it's another level of art. But in the way they make movies and in the way they do things now, it's just not being done as much right now.
If you don't want to do it, that's fine. But don't tell me I'm supposed to go, oh, that's amazing because
there's three. Yeah. There's I think there are three to this movie. There are three soundtracks out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell is that?
Three.
I mean, soundtracks. Yes. Now, and you listen to those. Okay, so here I'll give you a good example. The Bond movies. What's the really good Bond movie? The newer Bond movie. That has a phenomenal soundtrack. Phenomenal. And instead of it having there's the Bond theme, obviously. Right. But instead of it having reoccurring stuff, it's got snippets, but they are
No Time to Die.
It was I get them mixed up. Casino Royale, and then the other one. Okay.
Quantum of Solace.
Not Spectre. That's it. The soundtrack to that. I mean, it's great. I mean, so there are things done out there, and rhythmically, you know, that was the only thing. Even this didn't have the longer rhythmic stuff that you normally have. It had very sharp and brash. It had the female vocalists, and there have been a lot of minor seconds and stuff.
Hans Zimmer's done a lot of traditional scores too.
Well,
He did a
and
lot
that's
of
how he
stuff.
started out. The other
Yeah.
thing is he reuses.
But you got to say, when you're talking about James Bond movies, when you're talking about John Barry did a lot of those things.
Right. But
John
even
Barry's
I'm
right
talking
up there
about
with
the newer
John
ones.
Williams as an amazing score or writer, whatever. So,
yeah.
Oh, he
so there's
did
a lot to follow
Gladiator
from.
and Inception.
Yeah, he did Inception. Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah. And a whole lot of The Simpsons.
But one thing I did, going back to Dune, people were worried and or upset about them gender swapping Liette Kynes' character. But I thought that was fine. Like I love Max von Sydow, and I could see that. But
yeah, I thought that was fine.
Right, and I thought that was, and they expanded her character a good bit more. Now, supposedly they did actually film the dinner scene, but it's not in the movie. Really? So, because, and I could see why they didn't put it in there, because it would have kind of pulled you out of what was going on. But it did seem like it was a very small time. It felt like they had been there for 2 days when everything happened.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit longer than that.
I agree. It was it had a very streamlined feel, and that's what I wonder if it's just from me having had the books and all that other stuff. And I mean, and having read a lot of it, and some of the other stuff that's in canon. I just wonder what other people, the things I've heard and read, I think the majority of people really, really like it. It's visually beautiful.
Yeah.
All the costumes and wardrobes and all that were I thought
when they're on in Sundar Secundus or whatever, when they're talking, when he's talking to the Sardaukar, that was pretty amazing. That was very cool. And then I thought this was funny because I've told you the people in the Dune groups on Facebook are terrible, because they are. One of them was complaining that they didn't hire a morbidly obese actor to play Baron Harkonnen. Why did they get a skinny actor and put him in a fat suit? And the first person went, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but actors, one of the things they do is play people that they aren't.
They act.
They act.
Literally.
I liked that to a certain degree. The way
but he could have been grosser. I remember.
No, because he's not gross. In the books, he's not gross. He's just gross in the old movie.
Yeah.
I know, but in the old movie, like he's scared. That character scared me.
Well, the whole heart plug thing, that was one of the things I remember.
Disgusting. But how they acted towards each other and that whole thing. And that's something that was different in this movie versus the old movie. They acted so much more like animals in the first movie.
They are.
Like,
yeah.
But they were more animalistic. They're a lot of kind of stuff like that, and how they behaved amongst each other was that very like primal, they'll rip you apart kind of thing. And one thing that we haven't even mentioned this whole time are the frickin' sandworms.
Yeah, I thought
the sandworms. They were amazing.
They did a great job with it.
Yeah. They were amazing. I thought they did such a good job with it, and it was just it's so cool, and how they framed him, how we got to see a lot of the stuff. I feel like we got to see more of it, obviously, than the original movie, because times are different. They could obviously make.
Well, it's going to be hard to beat that the graphics on that scene where they ride the worm
It looked like a big sleeve.
Yeah, they.
It was like it's a dirt. Act like it's moving.
Yeah, I thought the thumper. I thought when they used it, I thought the way they did that, the way that was shot was kind of. Actually, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it was more. It definitely was more dramatic. There was a lot more anticipation to see the worm, and then we finally got to see them and their interaction, and then the very end with them riding it. It's like I really appreciated that, because ultimately, like they're the reason why the spice is there, and we don't even know that yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really cool to see, and I'll be really excited to see more of them, obviously, in the next movie. And that's really, as a child, that was my favorite part of the whole thing is the freaking sandworms.
I appreciate that this we don't have to deal with the sleeper in this movie. That's a nice touch. Also that we don't have a weirding module. That's another thing I'm not missing.
Mhm.
And one thing though that's weird that I don't think they explained it pretty well in the book, and they explained it definitely in the first movie, is why they use swords and knives, because everybody has a shield.
Right.
And if you hit if a laser hits a shield, it causes a nuclear explosion. So, and it was
I don't
weird.
think
They were using lasers.
they have them. I like the way they did that blue, and then once it was
once it was slowing up, it was red.
I thought that was
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. It made a little more sense and looked a little better than the boxy things from the first movie.
Yeah.
Trying to remember. Oh, and Rebecca Ferguson is from Sweden.
Oh.
She was great. I thought she may have been my favorite of the actors.
She definitely was my favorite.
I thought she did a great job.
And Charlotte Rampling as the Reverend Mother, I thought was great, because she was
really good too.
She's such a great actress.
The way that was shot and her wardrobe, I thought was pretty cool too. Yeah. That scene was pretty cool, and it had elements that was taken straight out of the book. There was some things changed, but there was some of that dialogue was straight out.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, that was very much straight out of the book. And everybody keeps going on about Fade Rutha not being in it yet. But the thing is that they could eliminate that whole storyline of him, because it's pointless. Because when he kills him at the end, it's done. It doesn't continue into the next story. That there's no point of it. I thought Dave Bautista. I thought the Harkonnens were good. They were super weird still, which is one thing that they're not. They don't really describe them as that weird in the book.
Right.
A lot of that weirdness came from the first movie, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But
had to make them seem like the really bad guys. Otherwise, they seem like just two.
That's true.
Factions.
But and
they need to be the worst of the worst, which is what
I thought it was interesting, Zendaya being not immediately Paul's friend. Like in the book, she kind of likes him from the get-go, but in this one, she's like, "Oh, here's a knife that was given to me by my great aunt, and it's the tooth of the sandworm. It'll be a great honor for you to hold this knife as you're killed." I'm like,
as you die.
Yeah, as you die. I was like, that's a little, because in the book,
just die with honor.
Yeah, in the book, she tells him, she goes, "Watch out, because Jameis will switch hands. He can fight with either hand with the knife, so watch for that." And of course, she gives him.
Wasn't that also in the scene in the movie too?
If you watch the extended version of the movie, which is wretchedly long and really there's some but yes, I think that scene is in there.
Yeah.
One thing is Paul seems to be very much more in control of the situation, whereas in the book his mother's still trying to extract.
He's frozen up on us.
It's okay, because I feel like he's got a filter on him that makes him look like he's the talking head from the 90s.
There he comes back. Hey, you blinked out for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Me?
Froze up.
Yeah, you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm back now, so I guess if you tell.
Do you have like a filter going?
No, I don't. I don't know what's going on in this room. Like the light, I upgrade.
He's doing it again.
He's frozen again.
Mm-hmm. But seriously, he looks like a digital cutout. Doesn't he?
Like a frozen and
like a digital cutout on a screen.
Right there, you froze again.
There we go.
And you freeze for a good 20 seconds.
But the thing is I hear you talking and you guys moving, so it's like it's not on my end at all. I mean, I don't.
Well, we're fine.
We're fine. You freeze, it's on your end because it's because her and I keep talking and it never interrupts.
It's my upload, not my download.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that means I think we all pretty much agreed that it was
good,
well worth watching, and
absolutely
pretty excited about the second.
I've watched it like 8 times. So it's like a whole day of my life.
I actually now want to go back. I'm going to re-listen. I'm going to re-listen this week to the book. I used to read the book every year, but it's been several years since I've reread it. I mean,
I just read it. I finished it a couple weeks before the movie came out, and now I'm trying to read Dune Messiah, which is a much harder book to get into.
Yeah, I actually think the third one's easier. I think, and we may have already had this conversation, but I think the Dune books are kind of like Lord of the Rings in that I always enjoy them more if I just pick up one in the middle and I know enough of what's going on. If you try to read like the Two Towers after reading Fellowship of the Rings, you're already, the Fellowship of the Rings is a little bit of a struggle. So I think it's the same thing with Dune. I much more enjoyed it when I just pull out one of the later books and read it.
I read Lord of the Rings straight through. Every time I've read it, I've just had the one big volume. I've read it like 3 times. I just read straight through.
I've done
it's a bit of a slog, especially, the Two Towers. The Two Towers, when you read that book, you're like, I'm in awe of him making a movie out of that, because there's so many things in that book. I'm like, how did you make this work?
It's the same thing with the later Dune ones. But if you know it, it's much easier to like pick up and read it, and you don't have the fatigue. So I think that's the same. I think that with all the Dune books, although the second one is definitely harder to read, but I think it's still a great book. It's the opposite in so many ways of the first one.
You have like a different light, or your camera's different, or what?
It's like above your head.
Yeah, I know. It's the light, and I've been trying to mess with this light for a while.
Is it like a blue light? A fluorescent light or something?
No.
Because
you look like better when you had it the other.
Yeah. Because you look like the talking head from the 90s and the music videos and MTV.
Max Headroom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Headroom? That's awesome.
Yeah. You need to put it back to where. No.
Okay, hold on. We can go all the way around.
It was better how you had it before. Yeah, back again. Back a little bit. There you go.
That's pretty good.
All right.
Yeah.